Okay, so I'm about to tell you a story that literally ruined my life. And before you click away thinking this is some typical revenge fantasy, just hear me out. Because this isn't about me winning. This is about me losing everything. 8 months. That's how long my tenant refused to pay rent. Not 3 weeks, not 2 months, 8 months. We're talking $12,000 here. $12,000 of money I'd earned. Money I'd saved. Money I was counting on to pay my actual mortgage. And every single month, he had a new excuse, a new story. Oh man, my check is coming Friday. Friday comes, nothing. Sorry, my business partner screwed me. Sorry, I lost $12,000 and you're apologizing like you spilled coffee on me. I called him, I texted him, I sent formal letters. I tried being nice. I tried being firm. I tried everything the legal way. Except actually filing for eviction, because the system is so broken that by the time you win in court, you've already lost everything anyway. So I did something. I did something that seemed, in the moment, completely justified. Reasonable even. I was backed into a corner. I had a right to my money. I had a right to not be defrauded. I had a right to fight back. Except I didn't have the right to do what I actually did. And that's where this story gets interesting. Because I decided to make his apartment so uncomfortable that he would want to leave. Not illegally, I told myself. Just creatively uncomfortable. Just enough pressure to push him out without crossing any actual lines. Spoiler alert, I crossed every single line there is. And this is the crazy part. I documented everything I did on my own security cameras, like an idiot, like someone who thought he was being smart but was actually just leaving a full video record of his own crimes. What happened next completely destroyed me, not in a satisfied, justice served kind of way, in a lose $500,000, have a criminal record, become nationally infamous kind of way. And here's the thing that messes with me the most. Part of me still thinks I was justified, not in what I did. The methods were wrong, completely, morally, legally wrong. But the feeling of being wronged? That part still eats at me. So if you want to hear a story about revenge that doesn't actually feel like revenge, about justice that looks like destruction, about what happens when a good person with a legitimate grievance decides to take matters into their own hands, you're in the right place. Drop your city in the comments before we start because I want to know where people are watching this. And if your neighborhood has that one person who makes everyone else's life difficult, you'll probably recognize someone in this story. Let's go. I got pre-approved for a mortgage. I found a beautiful duplex in a decent neighborhood. Good bones, you know? The kind of property that you can rent out and actually make money from because it's in a desirable area. I moved into one half and posted an ad for the other. For 10 years, it worked. I had tenants who paid on time. Good people, normal people. We had a simple agreement. They paid me $1,400 a month. I maintained the property. Everyone was happy. I built equity. My investment grew. I was building something real. I was living the dream. Then, in 2022, I met Marcus. He seemed absolutely perfect. On paper, he was a dream tenant. He said he worked in tech. You know how in the early 2020s, everyone with any job in tech made decent money. He fit that profile perfectly. He had good credit, like genuinely good credit, 750 plus score. I checked. I was being responsible. He had references from previous landlords, plural, and I actually called those landlords. Not like a generic call where they just say, yeah, he's fine. I actually talked to them, asked real questions, got real answers, everything checked out. So when he signed the lease for $1,400 a month and gave me the first month's rent plus security deposit, I felt like I'd done everything right. I'd been thorough. I'd been careful. I'd been responsible. I had no idea I was about to lose everything. March 2022. He moves in. The apartment is beautiful. He seems happy. Everything is great. April comes. Rent arrives on time. The 1st, right on schedule. I'm thinking, finally, I found a good one. This is going to be easy. May. Same thing. Rent on the 1st. Everything is perfect. June 3rd. I notice his rent hasn't arrived. Not a huge deal. Things happen. People are late sometimes. I'm a reasonable person. So I send a friendly text. Hey Marcus, just checking in on that June payment. Everything okay? His response comes back within minutes. Oh man, yeah, just a cash flow thing with my business. I've got a bonus coming Friday. I'll send you the whole thing plus late fees. Sorry about that. Okay. Fair enough. The guy's being honest. He's being apologetic. He's offering to pay late fees. This seems like someone who's going to make it right. Friday comes. No payment. I wait until Monday. Nothing. So I send another text trying to stay friendly. Hey, just following up on that payment. All good? This time his response is, hey dude, so the bonus got pushed to next week. I know, it's annoying, but it's definitely coming. I'll have your full amount plus late fees by next Friday for sure. Okay. I'm not thrilled, but I'm not panicking. People have setbacks. Bonuses get delayed. This is life. I can float it for another week. I'm not a monster. Next Friday comes. No payment. Now I'm starting to feel something. It's not quite anger yet. It's more like unease. A little knot in my stomach. Because the excuses are starting to feel like patterns instead of explanations. But he's still texting me back. He's still being responsive. He's still apologizing. He's still promising to pay. So I wait. July passes with similar excuses. His payment comes in around the middle of the month. One time out of the 3 times it should have come. August, same thing. He pays maybe once. Maybe. And it's always with a new story about why. By September, I'm confused. I'm frustrated. But I'm also still holding on to the hope that this is temporary. That this is someone going through a rough patch. That this is temporary. That's the thing about being a decent person. You hold on to hope even when the evidence is saying you shouldn't. By October, I'm not sleeping well. I'd go to bed and my brain would just start doing the math, start worrying, start calculating how many months I could actually cover his rent with my own money before my own situation became dire. By November, I'd sent him probably 20 texts. 20. And he's reading them. He's definitely reading them. But he's not responding consistently anymore. Sometimes he ghosts for a week. Sometimes he responds with another excuse. And the excuses are getting more elaborate, more detailed, which, in a weird way, almost makes them more suspicious. Because the more detailed an excuse is, the more rehearsed it sounds. My business partner did a bad deal and my expected revenue got cut by 40%, and I'm waiting on a lawsuit settlement that should come through next month. Who talks like that? Who prepares an excuse that detailed unless they've said it multiple times to multiple people? By December, we're at $8,400 in unpaid rent, 2/3 of the year's rental income just gone. I called him. Actually called him on the phone, not a text, a phone call. He answered like everything was normal. Hey dude, what's up? And I lost it a little bit. Not yelling, but definitely firm. Marcus, what's going on with the rent? You haven't paid since September. That's $8,400. I need to understand what's happening here. And he gave me the same excuses in real time. The business partner, the lawsuit, the pending settlement that's definitely coming in January. January came. No settlement, no payment. My business partner did a bad deal and my expected revenue got cut by 40%, and I'm waiting on a lawsuit settlement that should come through next month. Who talks like that? Who prepares an excuse that detailed unless they've said it multiple times to multiple people? By December, we're at $8,400 in unpaid rent, 2/3 of the year's rental income just gone. I called him. Actually called him on the phone. Not a text. A phone call. He answered like everything was normal. Hey dude, what's up? And I lost it a little bit. Not yelling, but definitely firm. Marcus, what's going on with the rent? You haven't paid since September. That's $8,400. I need to understand what's happening here. And he gave me the same excuses in real time. The business partner, the lawsuit, the pending settlement that's definitely coming in January. January came. No settlement, no payment. By this point, I'd stopped texting. I'd stopped calling. Because I realized that he wasn't going to respond to those things. He was just going to keep spinning the same stories. So I did what you're supposed to do. I consulted with a lawyer about evicting him. And that's when I found out that the legal system is completely broken in ways I never even considered. The eviction process in my state takes 3 to 6 months, during which time he lives there for free. And the whole time, he's racking up rent debt that technically he might have to pay, but good luck actually collecting on it. And the kicker? During the eviction process, if he decides to fight it, it can get even longer. So the lawyer's advice was basically, you have to file for eviction. It's going to take forever. You're going to be out a lot of money in legal fees, and you might not ever see that money again. But it's your only option. That's when I realized I was completely trapped. I couldn't get him out legally without spending thousands of dollars I didn't have and waiting 6+ months. I couldn't collect the rent he already owed. I was essentially being stolen from, and the system designed to protect me was completely useless. So I did what a lot of people in desperate situations do. I started thinking about alternatives. My business partner did a bad deal and my expected revenue got cut by 40%, and I'm waiting on a lawsuit settlement that should come through next month. Who talks like that? Who prepares an excuse that detailed unless they've said it multiple times to multiple people? By December, we're at $8,400 in unpaid rent, 2/3 of the year's rental income just gone. I called him. Actually called him on the phone, not a text, a phone call. He answered like everything was normal. "Hey dude, what's up?" And I lost it a little bit. Not yelling, but definitely firm. "Marcus, what's going on with the rent? You haven't paid since September. That's $8,400. I need to understand what's happening here." And he gave me the same excuses in real time. The business partner, the lawsuit, the pending settlement that's definitely coming in January. January came. No settlement, no payment. By this point, I'd stopped texting. I'd stopped calling. Because I realized that he wasn't going to respond to those things. He was just going to keep spinning the same stories. So I did what you're supposed to do. I consulted with a lawyer about evicting him. And that's when I found out that the legal system is completely broken in ways I never even considered. The eviction process in my state takes 3 to 6 months, during which time he lives there for free. And the whole time, he's racking up rent debt that technically he might have to pay, but good luck actually collecting on it. And the kicker? During the eviction process, if he decides to fight it, it can get even longer. So the lawyer's advice was basically, you have to file for eviction. It's going to take forever. You're going to be out a lot of money in legal fees, and you might not ever see that money again. But it's your only option. That's when I realized I was completely trapped. I couldn't get him out legally without spending thousands of dollars I didn't have and waiting 6+ months. I couldn't collect the rent he already owed. I was essentially being stolen from, and the system designed to protect me was completely useless. So I did what a lot of people in desperate situations do. I started thinking about alternatives. It's February 2023, 1 year of this, 1 full year of excuses and broken promises and watching my money evaporate. I'm lying in bed at 2 in the morning. I hadn't slept in maybe 3 days. And I'm doing the math for probably the 100th time. If I spend $3,000 to hire a lawyer and file for eviction, it takes 6 months. I lose another $8,400 in rent during those 6 months, and then I still might not get a judgment that's actually collectible. Total loss, $11,400 plus emotional damage plus legal fees plus the time and stress of going to court. Or, what if I could just make the apartment so uncomfortable that he would want to leave? Now, I'm not saying I was thinking clearly. I wasn't. I was sleep-deprived and angry and desperate and out of options. But at that moment, in my exhausted brain, this idea seemed brilliant, seemed fair, seemed justified. He broke an agreement. He's stealing from me. I'm just creating incentives for him to stop stealing from me and go somewhere he can actually afford. That's not harassment, right? That's just consequences. Except it is harassment. Except that's exactly what it is. I just didn't let myself see it that way yet. I called a friend of mine who works in property maintenance, and I asked him some very specific questions about apartments and their vulnerabilities. Specifically, I asked about things that could go wrong, things that wouldn't be obviously sabotage, but would create frustration. He laughed at first, thinking I was joking, but when I didn't laugh back, he got serious, and he started giving me ideas. You could mess with the hot water heater, he suggested. And I'm listening to this, and my brain is going, see, it's not just you. Other people think this is reasonable. Other people have thought of this. That's how you justify the unjustifiable, by finding one other person who'll say it out loud with you. By the end of the call, I had a plan, a stupid plan, an illegal plan, a plan that, in retrospect, was absolutely insane. But it felt, in that moment, like the only option I had left. I hung up the phone at like 4 in the morning, and I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. I felt in control. I felt like I was finally doing something instead of just being victimized. And that feeling was intoxicating, because when you've been wronged, when you've been genuinely, materially wronged, the desire to do something about it becomes almost overwhelming. The desire to take back agency, to not be a victim anymore, to make something happen. That desire is powerful, and it's dangerous, because it doesn't care if what you're about to do is wrong. It just wants to make you feel less helpless. And I was about to become very not helpless. I just didn't know yet that not helpless was going to destroy my entire life. So here's what I started with: the hot water heater. February 15th, I go into his apartment. I have a key. I'm the owner. I tell myself this is fine. and I turn off the hot water. But not in a way that's obvious. I don't just flip a switch. I do it smart. I do it in a way where it seems like there's an actual problem with the system. Then, I knock on his door and I say, "Hey Marcus, I'm getting some reports that the hot water system might be having issues. Just wanted to give you a heads up. My guy's coming out tomorrow to take a look." And I schedule a plumber. The plumber comes, looks at the water heater, finds nothing wrong. Of course he doesn't. There is nothing wrong. I just turned it off. But Marcus doesn't know that, so he spends a week without hot water. In February, in a climate where that's actually unpleasant, he texts me every single day, "When's the water heater getting fixed?" And I keep telling him the same thing. "My guy's coming out tomorrow." Tomorrow never comes. I keep scheduling appointments and then canceling them. By day 5, he's texting me more urgently. "Dude, I haven't had hot water in 5 days. This is not okay. What's going on?" And on day 6, I get an emergency call from him. Not a text. A call. Angry. "I don't have hot water. I can't shower. I'm going to a gym to shower. This is ridiculous." And listen. In that moment, hearing him frustrated, I felt good. I felt like I was finally the one in control. Like I was finally the one causing problems instead of being caused them. That's the moment I should have stopped. That's the moment someone with a conscience would have turned the water back on. But I didn't. Day 7, I had the plumber come back out. The heater miraculously is working fine now. Everything's back to normal. Marcus was confused, didn't understand what the problem had been. The plumber shrugged, said sometimes heaters do that. He had no idea. But I did, and that secret knowledge felt powerful. So I did it again. But this time, I went bigger. I had an electrician, actually paid for this one, actually legitimate work, rewire his bedroom outlets so that specific ones would randomly trip the breaker. Not all of them, just certain ones. So he couldn't figure out what was wrong. His TV would cut out mid-show. His phone charger would stop working in the middle of charging. His alarm clock wouldn't stay on. Every time something stopped working, he'd call me. My outlets aren't working. I'd send a different electrician out. Different electrician finds nothing wrong. I'd charge him $150 for the service call because, technically, it's his apartment and he's requesting repairs. This went on for 3 months. It cost him probably $1,200 in service calls. And it was working. I could tell it was working because he was getting increasingly frustrated, increasingly desperate. I was pushing him toward the door without quite pushing him through it. But he still wasn't leaving. So I took it to the next level. I started going into his apartment when he wasn't there. I know. But I'd convinced myself that because I owned the building, I had every right to be there. It was my property after all, and I told myself I was doing maintenance checks, legitimate landlord stuff. But I wasn't. I was rearranging his furniture, moving his couch to face a different direction, moving his nightstand to the other side of the bed, moving his shoes and clothes and books. Not enough that he could be absolutely certain something had been moved. Just enough that something would feel off. Off enough that he'd start questioning his own perception of reality. One time, I moved every single thing in his kitchen cabinets 1 shelf up. Everything. So when he went to make coffee in the morning, reaching for where his cups should be, they weren't there. They were on the shelf above. It sounds like a small thing. It is a small thing. But when it happens repeatedly, when your world stops working the way you expect it to, something shifts in your mind. I could see it in him through the windows of his apartment. He'd come home and just stand there, looking around, trying to figure out what was different, trying to figure out if he was losing his mind. And I was the one making him feel that way. But I still convinced myself it was justified. He's not paying rent. He deserves to be uncomfortable. This is fair. This is proportional. These were the stories I told myself while I was literally invading someone's private space and gaslighting them. By April 2023, I'd gone way beyond the hot water heater and weird electrical problems. I'd bought a Bluetooth speaker from Amazon. Nothing fancy. $15. And I'd installed it in his closet, hidden deep behind his winter coats. At 2 in the morning, when I knew he'd be deepest in sleep, I would turn it on from my apartment, using my phone and play sounds through it. Not music, not voices, just sounds, whispers, footsteps, breathing, the kind of sounds that don't quite make sense but definitely don't sound normal. Then, I'd turn it off and remove the speaker before he could find it. I was trying to make him think his apartment was haunted. And honestly, looking back at it now, I can see how insane that sounds. Genuinely unhinged. But in the moment, it felt calculated. It felt like a strategy. Marcus started looking visibly different. He'd come home and just stand in his apartment, looking around, searching for something he couldn't name. He'd open every closet, every cabinet, looking for the source of the sounds he'd heard. He started sleeping with all the lights on. He started looking panicked, actually panicked. One day, he knocked on my door and asked if I'd noticed anything weird about his place. Did I think the apartment was structurally unsound? Did I think maybe something was wrong with the building? And he asked me directly if I thought it was haunted. He was standing there, clearly losing his mind, clearly terrified, and asking me if I thought his apartment was haunted. And I looked him in the eye and lied. "No, everything seems fine to me," I said. "Maybe you're just stressed. Maybe you're getting paranoid." And in that moment, I became someone I didn't recognize. Not a wronged landlord defending his property. A predator. Someone who was deliberately, systematically destroying another person's mental health for what? To make rent? To prove a point? I couldn't even articulate why I was doing it anymore. I was just doing it. By May, his appearance had changed noticeably. He looked gaunt. He had these deep bags under his eyes. He'd lost weight. He looked sick. And instead of stopping, I somehow went deeper. I started using his spare key, the one he'd given me for emergencies, to let myself into his apartment during the day when he was at work. I'd just be there. I'd sit on his couch for an hour, not doing anything, just sitting, invading, existing in his space without permission. I'd eat his food and not replace it, leaving evidence that someone had been there. I'd pick up his mail and move it to different places. I'd turn his thermostat up and down. I'd open curtains that had been closed, close blinds that had been open. The psychological warfare had completely taken over my life. I was spending hours thinking about new ways to mess with him, new ways to make him uncomfortable, new ways to destabilize his world. And I was documenting some of it with photos, not because I thought I needed evidence for court, but because the documentation made it feel intentional, made it feel like I was in control, made it feel like I had a plan instead of like I was just breaking. The thing about justification is that it's like a drug. Each time you do something wrong and you manage to convince yourself why it's okay, it gets easier to do the next wrong thing. The dose keeps increasing. The line you're willing to cross keeps moving. Until one day, you're standing in someone else's apartment at 1:47 in the morning in the dark, watching them sleep, and you can't even remember why you thought this was reasonable. You're just there. And you're not thinking about rent anymore. You're thinking about power. You're thinking about control. You're thinking about how good it feels to be the one causing the pain instead of experiencing it. And that's when you know you've gone too far. But you don't stop. I didn't stop. For 4 more months, I didn't stop. I just kept going deeper and deeper into the delusion that this was somehow justified, that somehow what I was doing was less wrong than what he'd done to me, that somehow my wrongdoing was in service of righting his wrongdoing. And it's the most dangerous kind of lie, because you almost believe it. You believe it just enough to keep going, just enough to not stop yourself, just enough to destroy everything. So here's where I'm supposed to tell you, I learned my lesson, and I'm a changed man. And I did learn lessons, multiple of them. I learned that the law exists for reasons. I learned that 2 wrongs don't make a right. I learned that psychological abuse is abuse, regardless of justification. But here's the honest part that people don't want to talk about. Do I think Marcus owed me that rent? Yes, absolutely. He made an agreement and broke it. In a just world, he'd have to pay. Do I think what I did was wrong? Also yes, completely. There's no universe where my actions were justified. Do I think it's fair that he ended up better off than me? No, I don't think that's fair at all. But the law doesn't care about fair. The law says your grievance doesn't matter. Your being wronged first doesn't matter. What matters is what you did in response. And what I did violated his rights more severely than he violated mine. I think about that 1:47 a.m. moment a lot, standing in his bedroom doorway, watching him sleep. And I think about who I was in that moment. I wasn't a wronged landlord standing up for myself. I was someone who'd given up on justice and decided to become a criminal instead. And the scariest part? I took that first step, turning off the hot water, and thought it was justified. I told myself a story where I was the good guy. And by the time I realized I wasn't, I'd already gone way too far. That's the real lesson here. Not just don't break the law, but be very careful about the stories you tell yourself when you've been wronged. Because those stories are how good people become bad people. Not all at once, but one small justified step at a time. And by the time you realize what you've become, you've already lost everything. If you're watching this and you're in a similar situation, someone owes you money, the system feels broken, you're desperate. Think about this story. Think about how reasonable it all seemed in the moment. Think about the $550,000 I lost trying to be clever. Think about the criminal record. Think about standing in someone else's bedroom at 1:47 a.m. and not recognizing yourself. There are always better ways, legal ways, hard ways sometimes, slow ways sometimes, but better ways. Because being right doesn't matter if you lose everything trying to prove it. And that's the hardest lesson of all. Drop a comment if this resonated with you. Let me know if you've ever been in a similar situation and how you handled it differently. And if you made it this far in the video, hit that subscribe button because I'll be sharing more stories about how good intentions can lead to bad outcomes. Because those are the stories we actually need to hear. Not the revenge fantasies, but the real ones. The ones where nobody wins. Thanks for watching.